Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 15 2020 NFL predictions. Well, for the Fanatic this week, it was definitely a downturn from the week before where I had a winning week, both against the spread and straight up. I went from 10-5 and 13-2 to 5-10 this week against the spread and 9-6 straight up. So I'm okay with my straight up record. Still got above 500 and still have a chance tonight with the Cleveland Browns to get to that 10-win threshold to get to 62.5%. Against the spread, definitely not one of my better weeks. A lot of teams that I thought were going to win, they didn't. Like the Browns or the Texans-Bears game, that was absolutely dreadful. Mitchell Trubisky outplayed Deshaun Watson, which I did not expect. When you let David Montgomery get an 80-yard touchdown run, they had a safety from a Khalil Mack strip and recovery. So kudos to them. Or a Khalil Mack strip. I don't think the Texans recovered, but still was a safety in the end zone. So that was a really tough one. The Vikings-Bucks game, I blamed that on Dan Bailey. He's missed 7 kicks over the last 2 weeks, and those 7 kicks would have been 10 points. They lost the game by 12, 26-14. So at that point, so that could help the cover there. When you look at the Packers, I actually had a benefit from 2 kicks at the end of games. The Packers kick kind of jipped me out of the game because the Packers were up by 11, and the Lions got the field goal to get 7. They were 8-point favorites. Where on the other hand, I got the Chiefs game because the Dolphins decided to kick a field goal and go for the onside. Both teams obviously that were in the lead recovered and they won, but that was a double break there. The Steelers lost by 11, and it's kind of funny. I told everybody, everybody's probably going to take Buffalo, and they were on a good roll, and I was like, everybody's let's kind of calm down with Pittsburgh and Buffalo. And honestly, after looking at the game, I should have taken my own advice and gone with the Buffalo Bills because they played a very solid game. I thought as the game went on, if anybody that watched, the Steelers through the first half of the game were dominating, and then the Bills got the quick field goal, and then Big Ben threw a pick 6. It was the first time in 3 years the Bills got a defensive touchdown, and it was 9-7 at that point in the game, and the Bills never looked back. Josh Allen ended up throwing for 2 more touchdowns, and now Stephon Diggs is leading the league in receptions, and he's had a fantastic year. Where the Bills and the Vikings equally, I think, will have won the trades for their respective draft pick and player. And the Bills, for the first time, have a 2-game lead in the AFC East. The first time since 1995. Josh Allen wasn't even born for them. So, kudos to the Bills for that one. And that's how basically the against the spread picks ended up. The Chargers-Falcons game, I took the team that was on a bit of a better roll. Both teams have obviously been choke artists over the last few years, and the Falcons just ended up choking up a little bit more than the Chargers, though that end of the half sequence for the Chargers was absolutely abysmal. Second time in the last couple of weeks they've had abysmal, or second time in the last 3 weeks they've had abysmal end of the half sequences that almost cost them games. And I honestly thought that even Michael Badgley with the 43-yard field goal wasn't going to make it, but fortunately for the Chargers, I guess the dead clock's right twice a day, and they got one. And for Matt Ryan, wow, that's a brutal loss to out-choke the Chargers where you throw 2 picks within the fourth quarter, one to Nasir Adderley, and I believe the other one was to Mike Davis, number 43, with under 30 seconds left in the game, and you somehow blow that, just brutal. But kudos to the Chargers. I don't think it saved Lynn's job, but it basically, to me, I feel like with the Falcons' remaining schedule, 2 games against the Bucks and the Chiefs in the middle of that sandwich, that's a 4-game losing streak to end the Raheem Morris regime, and I think that is enough to where I would keep him on the staff because the Falcons have played a lot better overall, but I don't think he should be the head coach. I thought about that for a second. You'd argue the Lions game might be the difference, and sure. But looking at the Lions game, looking at the 2 games against the Saints, looking at this 4-game stretch here, if it goes L, I don't think Raheem should come back. And I think the Falcons need to blow up most of the assets they have, or definitely consider, at the very least, trading Julio Jones. Because I think Julio Jones, this is the best time or the highest to have his trade value, and I think that they should move on, or they should move on from him at this point, because the Falcons have shown you through their games that they can at least be respectable in the games even without him, with guys like Russell Gage, Laquan Treadwell getting a touchdown, which that's a name from 5 years ago. The last name that starts with Z, Hayden Hurst is solid, so I think that's where the Falcons should move on. And overall for the year now, I am 108, 96, and 3 against the spread, and straight up I am now 137, 69, and 1. So that equals 53% against the spread, and straight up about 66% straight up. So definitely that 67, 68 range is still there. I need to have a dominant 3 weeks. I feel like this week it's much better straight up, and in terms of just the picks, most of them are pretty straightforward. Against the spread, who knows, but we'll see. There are no more buys, so anybody that's in the fantasy playoffs, best of luck to you. Unfortunately, that's not me. I had a raft of injuries affect my lineup, and I made some trades that, in the grand scheme of things, I probably should regret making. But hey, that's how sometimes things go in fantasy. So for anybody out there, best of luck in your fantasy playoffs over the next 2 or 3 weeks. Because I do think some people in week 17, because of the only bye, there will be more games where more starters will play. So best of luck to anybody out there that's watching the video. All right, so time for my picks. There are no more buys, so we got 48 games to go. Let's get started. So on Thursday, when the 4-9 Los Angeles Chargers go to the 7-6 Las Vegas Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders are 3-point favorites in this game. I like the Las Vegas Raiders here to win straight up, but give me the Los Angeles Chargers +3. Then on Saturday, we have a doubleheader this coming Saturday. First 2 Saturdays, this week and next week for games. When the 10-3 Buffalo Bills go to the 5-8 Denver Broncos, the Buffalo Bills are 4.5-point favorites in this game. I like Buffalo here -4.5, and Buffalo straight up. Then the next game, when the 4-9 Carolina Panthers go to the 10-3 Green Bay Packers, the Green Bay Packers are 9-point favorites in this game. Give me the Green Bay Packers here to win straight up, but give me the Carolina Panthers +9. Then on Sunday, when the 5-8 San Francisco 49ers go to the 4-9 Dallas Cowboys, the San Francisco 49ers are 2-point favorites in this game. Give me the San Francisco 49ers here -2, and San Francisco straight up. Then the next game, when the 9-4 Seattle Seahawks go to the 6-7 Washington Football Team, the Seattle Seahawks are 4.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Washington Football Team here +4.5, but I'm going to take the Seattle Seahawks straight up. Then the next game, when the 6-7 Chicago Bears go to the 6-7 Minnesota Vikings, the Chicago Bears are 3-point underdogs in this game. In my biggest upset, I think, of the week out of all my picks, give me the Chicago Bears here +3 and Chicago Bears straight up. Then the next game, when the 6-7 New England Patriots go to the 8-5 Miami Dolphins, the Miami Dolphins are 2.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Miami Dolphins here -2.5, and the Miami Dolphins straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-12 Jacksonville Jaguars go to the 8-5 or 7-6 Baltimore Ravens, the Baltimore Ravens are 12.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Baltimore Ravens here -12.5, and Baltimore straight up. Then the next game, when the 8-5 Tampa Bay Buccaneers go to the 4-9 Atlanta Falcons, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 4-point favorites in this game. Give me the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here -4, and Tampa Bay straight up. Then the next game, when the 5-8 Detroit Lions go to the 9-4 Tennessee Titans, the Tennessee Titans are 11.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Tennessee Titans here to win straight up, but I'm going to take the Detroit Lions +11.5. Then the next game, when the 4-9, the 5-8 Houston Texans go to the 9-4 Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts are 7-point favorites in this game. I like Indianapolis here -7, and Indianapolis straight up. Then the next game, when the 0-13 New York Jets go to the 9-4 Los Angeles Rams. Just like with the Chiefs game, this is one of the largest lines you will have all year. The LA Rams are 17-point favorites in this game. Just like with the Chiefs, after what the Seahawks did to the Jets, I know the Rams offense may not be as explosive, but I know the Rams defense is just as good, I think, as the Seattle offense right now. The LA Rams are 17-point favorites in this game. If they could lose by 37 to the Seahawks, they can at least lose by 17 to the Rams. I'm going to take the LA Rams here -17 and the LA Rams straight up. Then the next game, when the 4-8-1 Philadelphia Eagles, 4-8-1 Philadelphia Eagles go to the 6-7 Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals are 5.5-point favorites in this game. I'm going to take the Arizona Cardinals here to win straight up, but give me the Philadelphia Eagles plus 5.5. Then the next game, when the 11-1, the 12-1, here we go. The 12-1 Kansas City Chiefs go to the 10-3 New Orleans Saints. The Kansas City Chiefs are 4-point favorites in this game. Give me the Kansas City Chiefs here, -4, and the Kansas City Chiefs straight up. Then the Sunday night game, when the 10-3, when the 9-4 or 8-5 Cleveland Browns go to the 5-8 New York Giants. The Cleveland Browns are 3.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Cleveland Browns here, -3.5, and Cleveland straight up. And finally, in the Monday night game, when the 11-2 Pittsburgh Steelers go to the 10-1 Cincinnati Bengals, the Pittsburgh Steelers are 12.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Pittsburgh Steelers here, -12.5, and Pittsburgh straight up. All right, so time for my thoughts on each game. The Las Vegas Raiders over the Los Angeles Chargers. This is one to where I'm torn here, because the Chargers, for the most part, like, after what you saw, Herbert played well. He threw for another 2 touchdowns, had a pick at the end. Keenan Allen had another solid game. They got 3 turnovers on Matt Ryan. Derek Carr and the Raiders, he had 2 big interceptions, one in the end zone, and then the other one that was the pick 6 by Wilkins. And the Raiders' defense was just absolutely dreadful. Jonathan Taylor had his longest career run as a Colt with 63 yards. T.Y. Hilton had 2 big touchdowns. Phillip Rivers threw for 244 yards, was consistently accurate throughout the game when they needed him to. And they fired their defensive coordinator, Paul Guenther, and that was with all the money they spent on their defense. And that's the issue. And I look at the Chargers and go, well, like, you beat the Falcons. And that's the thing. It's like, the Chargers played better than the Falcons, but again, it's like, that one I'm like, there's just this feeling of me going like, okay, the Raiders, like, John Gruden's job is on the line in this game. Because right now, I do not think they beat the Dolphins. They could beat the Broncos, sure. They did it before, and Drew Lock, and, I don't know how consistent, I don't think he's going to be throwing 3 touchdown games that often for the rest of the year. And he also had that big fumble that got them, back in the game, that got them up 7-6 early on yesterday. But I'm going to take the Raiders here just because it's like, this is Justin Herbert and the Chargers, where I'm just hedging here because I'm like, I don't like this Raiders defense at all. And Justin Herbert, the last time in Los Angeles, put up a fantastic game all the way around, but they just couldn't at the end. It was the Pan Am, the backup tight end, that dropped the game-winning touchdown because the Raiders were ahead, and the Chargers, that was the game where the Chargers had been losing a lot of leads. They couldn't even come back in this one. And I'm just hedging here because, like, I like what the Chargers did, and I think Herbert could do the same thing. And I just don't know with the Raiders if can they stop anybody right now, or just, like, with better talent and more assets, I think Herbert could outshoot Carr. And but there's this feeling of me going, okay, if it comes down to a late game situation in this, over the last couple of years, Gruden's won the last 3 games against the Chargers in this close fashion basically every time. So yeah, I kind of feel like that. Okay, like, I'm just gonna go with the book until the Chargers can get back-to-back wins for the first time all year, and probably for the first only for like a handful of times over the last 2 or 3 years with Lynn, or over the last 2 years with Lynn. I just have to take the Raiders to win this game. I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Chargers won, because right now, after what I've seen from last week and just a short week, I'd probably tell it's like that's why I want the Chargers on the line. But it's just like this one, I'm gonna take the Raiders. They're at home. And there's just something where, like, John Gruden has won the last, few times against the Chargers in close ones. Until he loses, I'll just go with the Raiders on that one. Should be a very good game, though, in terms of competition. And it's really significant for John Gruden's job. If he loses this game, because I believe he'll lose to the Dolphins, I believe that should be enough to get him fired. Because that will be 3 non-winning seasons in a row. And I think at this point, with everything that's gone on, someone brought up a great tweet about it. yesterday. Basically, Gruden over the last 3 or 4 years at both Oakland and Tampa Bay, or in Oakland/Las Vegas, he's done this where they've had great starts, but he collapses at the end of the year where they barely make the playoffs or they don't even make it at all. And I feel like this is the game which could determine if they make it at all or not. So that's why I like the Las Vegas Raiders here to win straight up. They're giving the Los Angeles Chargers +3. The next game, the Buffalo Bills over the Denver Broncos. This is one to where I like what Buffalo has been doing. Buffalo has played pretty much some of the most consistent football over the last several weeks. They're basically a Hail Mary away from winning 6 or 7 straight. Josh Allen's played really well. He's increased his completion percentage by 10 points. He has about 28 TDs and 9 interceptions. He has about 3,600 yards. He has done really well to where I think if he wins a playoff game, he's going to be in that $34 to $38 million range. I don't think, is he pure player? Is he as good as Deshaun Watson? No. But I think what he has around him definitely can help and move them forward in a direction that, they're going to be a consistent team for years to come under his arm and with the management around him. That's what I gave Brandon Beane a 5-year extension. And there's just always this thing with Denver that, every time they win one of these games, they get into this weird, situation to where, the next week they don't nearly play as well. Every time, Fangio beat the Jets, I know it's the Jets, but still, Fangio beat the Jets, they, crap the bed the next week. Fangio beat the Patriots the next week, didn't do well the week after. They beat the Chargers, and they didn't do well the week after. They really can't string wins together, and I also think with the Bills' defense, they're not going to let KJ Hamler or Deontay Spencer, who got the 83-yard kick return, those plays aren't going to happen against this Bills defense and this Bills team. Last time Denver played at home, they got blown out by the Saints. I don't think it's going to happen this time, but I feel confident that Buffalo could go in there with the weapons they have. Their secondary has been shot down due to PED suspensions from AJ Boye and Duke Dawson, who was out yesterday. Has torn his ACL, so that's another defense player that's out for the year for the Broncos. Even though I am happy for Ballsby, the guy that's been cut 13 times throughout his career. So I am happy for him that he made the game-winning play on the shallow cross. But this is one of those games to where the Bills I think are just more fundamentally built together, more consistent. And Fangio's defense at times against some of these talented offenses, I think he'll hold his own. And I think that Allen's not going to have one of the most sterling games, but he didn't have a sterling game against Pittsburgh's defense that is still pretty good even with the injuries they've had. So if he's going to play a weaker defense with more injuries, I got to take the Bills just with their passing attack and everything going on to win this game by the margin. I think they won by 11 and then they won by 10. So this is under 7, and I feel like, okay, the Bills, even if Denver lost by 6, they won by, it's they've been able to cover that margin pretty well, and I just think that number right now is good enough for the Bills to win this one. I think Denver can make it a little sneaky with Fangio's defense, but that offense is just, I don't think not nearly as effective against a much stronger Bills defense right now compared to what they were playing against the Panthers. So that's like Buffalo -4.5 and Buffalo straight up. The next game, the Green Bay Packers over the Carolina Panthers. This one straight up is fundamentally easy. The Packers have been on a dominant roll. I've essentially realized as well that throughout the year, I think there are 5 teams: the Chiefs, the Packers, the Steelers, the Jags, and the Jets, to where I have basically picked against. I picked the Jags one time. Strike that. So 4 teams. So basically the Chiefs, the Packers, the Steelers, and the Jets. Every week I've gone against the Jets, and I've picked the other 3 pretty much outright. I feel pretty good about my record so far. 11-2, 10-3, and 12-1. So, just so with those numbers, I'll just keep it going with this week. I think Rodgers, after what Patrick Mahomes did yesterday, having one of the worst games of his career and the worst game of the season, having 3 interceptions, taking a 30-yard sack. First time since 1972 that happened. They won another, it was a close game. I think Aaron Rodgers has got neck and neck in the MVP race. Because Aaron Rodgers, besides the Tampa game, or besides Tampa and Indy, he has not thrown an interception, I believe, the entire year. He had another 3-touchdown game yesterday. Devontae Adams, who's been, I arguably statistically the most dominant wide receiver in the entire league. I was happy that Valdez-Scantling coming up with another big touchdown, and he seems to do that on a consistent basis. Lazard had some nice plays. Aaron Jones and Williams didn't have that much to do, but, when you're playing a Lions defense that's, banged up, Jeff Okudah, they're the 3rd overall pick at core surgery, so their number 1 pick's out for the rest of the year. The Packers have handled their business really well, and I feel like that with what happened to the Saints, and I'll get to that, as I go on, I feel like the Packers are the best team in the conference, and if it has to be and with the head-to-head, it's a huge break for them as well. If the Saints have to go to Green Bay, even with Drew there, I think the Packers will win the NFC. The only game I would say that could give them the biggest challenge would be the Rams, because the Rams have a defense and a pass rush, and they can get very physical very quickly, that I think the Rams could go into Lambeau and win that game, and I don't think any other team, okay, I guess Tampa to an extent, maybe, but I think Tampa, they're not nearly as effective as they were back in week 6. So, I think that the Rams are the only team that could go into Green Bay if Green Bay holds on to the 1 seed and beat the Packers to get to the Super Bowl. Everybody else, I think the Packers will find a way to win, just based off talent or just off scheme or off situation. And look, I guess I took Carolina here +9 because Carolina is becoming like an Atlanta or a Chargers. I think the advantage for them is they have Matt Rule and all this new staff, so none of them are getting fired. They've won 4 games and they've looked pretty good in everyone else. But it just like they took the Chiefs to the wire. They took the Vikings to the wire. They took Denver. Denver was up by 15. They were able to make it down to a 4-point game or 5-point game. Carolina has been in close games with Las Vegas. Carolina's been in close games with Atlanta, Tampa. They've been in close games pretty much every week, and I feel like one score against the Packers team that the Packers defense I think will do a good job. And I think McCaffrey maybe not being able to play is going to be huge. And what a disappointing year for Christian McCaffrey just due to all the injuries. Even though I will say this, next year, $16 million, Carolina. If he gets hurt again, do you consider trading or cutting him? I might. A little hot take there, but I'm going to take the Packers here just because, again, they've just been so consistently dominant, and I pick them every week, and that I think the Panthers, it'll be just one of those, another close games to where the Panthers are going to play well. They could run the ball. I think, Bridgewater can make some plays with his legs and run. Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore should be back, which would be huge. They'll have Curtis Samuel there. The defense, I think, could get some stops. And I just feel like, again, this is going to be one of those classic Packers-Panthers games where the Panthers are going to play well. They might have a little bit of a lead, but they're not going to have enough to where Rodgers takes the lead around the middle of the second half, and they just hold on to, kind of trade field goals to get within that one score, and the Packers, get another big win. So that's why I like the Green Bay Packers here to win straight up, the Carolina Panthers +9. The next game, the San Francisco 49ers over the Dallas Cowboys. This is one to where I'm taking the San Francisco 49ers based on two big things. The Cowboys, look, they beat up the Bengals, bravo, give them their dilapidated roses and, move on. Everybody that's happy for Dallas, they got 4 wins, they're still in the division race technically, but they beat up a Bengal team that just quit and just hurt and just disappointed and just bad. So, strike that. I'm going to take the Niners here because of coaching and the running game. The Dallas defense is the worst in the league in terms of running the football against good teams. The Ravens did really well. The Browns did really well running. The Seahawks. The Cardinals did really well running the football. And the one thing I know that Kyle Shanahan can do and has a plentiful amount of is running backs. He has Jeff Wilson. He has Raheem Mostert. He has Jerick McKinnon. He has Telvin Coleman. He's got a lot of running backs there that can just pound the ball on a consistent basis. And it's just also going to come down to me where, look, I'm not the biggest Kyle Shanahan fan. And what happened yesterday, look, they were around the game, and it ended up being a one-score game. But also, the Washington football team was hampered by the quarterback injury to Alex Smith. Thankfully, he's on his knee, but it's his calf strain. The x-rays were, negative, and he should be okay, or it should be a short-term injury. I don't know if he's going to play this weekend against Seattle or not. But I think it's one of those things to where it strike out the quarterbacks. Because I think Andy Dalton right now is a better quarterback than Nick Mullins, who had 2 big defensive touchdowns. Like he had 3 turnovers overall. Deron Payne got the first one. Chase Young got the 50-yard touchdown return. And Cameron Curl got the 70-yard pick six that iced the game. But it's going to be one of those things to where Kyle Shanahan against Mike McCarthy, I'm going to take Kyle Shanahan in this game. I think could the Cowboys win this game? Sure. Because the Cowboys, for the most part, have played more consistent football since their bye. And, they played better. And the Niners have just kind of played like the Niners. But it's something where, like, the Niners, who are usually known for choking close games as of late, and Kyle Shanahan in one-score games goes to 31 games, 11-20. Fun fact, again, I will remind everybody, Kyle Shanahan in one-score games, he's at 31 of them, 11-20. So why is Kyle Shanahan not on the hot seat next year? Because everybody loves him, apparently, but they don't realize maybe how ineffective he is as a coach. But I digress. I'm going to take the Niners here as the winner here, because I feel like he's a better coach than Mike McCarthy, whose quality wins, whose biggest game was against the Bengals and some other games against some not decent teams. Could the Cowboys win? Sure. And this is a weird game because the Cowboys usually don't play at 1 o'clock. They're usually a 4 o'clock or a primetime game. And for the Niners, this is one of those moments to where I feel like if you are in this spot, this could basically be like, this is Dallas' season on the line. And I don't think for Dallas, they're not going to be able to rise up to the occasion, especially with how the Niners are, committed to running. And I think they will kind of just dominate the game that way, keep the ball out of Nick Mullins' hands. The Debo injury will be important. He left the game with a hamstring, and I guess that could change, a lot of things. But I think with the receivers they have, I like Ayurk a lot. And they have Jordan Reed, who's okay. But I just think the running game and the coaching will be the difference and a dominating factor in how the Niners win this game. To me. So that's why I like the San Francisco 49ers here -2, and San Francisco 49ers straight up. The next game, the Seattle Seahawks over the Washington football team. This game, to me, essentially comes down to the reason why I hedged my bet here is that Seattle beat up the Jets. Russell Wilson, again, 4 touchdowns, career high in touchdowns, bravo. But he beat up the Jets by 37. That's, again, that's a rarity for Seattle to get a huge blowout like that. And they scored their most high in points. And I do want to congratulate Jamal Adams for having the NFL record now for most sacks by a defensive back at 8.5 this year. But that's really sad that nobody else really... Well, I guess the Seattle defensive line has gotten over 20... almost 30 sacks over the last few weeks. So they've been able to generate a lot of pressure with Dunlap in them. But I think Seattle here, importantly, to me, will win this game based off the quarterback health of Washington. I don't know if Alex Smith is going to play. Because like I just said before, with his calf injury. With that being the case, if it's Dwayne Haskins that's going to be in the game, even with Russell Wilson going with his offensive line, we just saw this 2 weeks ago with the Giants' defensive line, where he got smothered and he could not do a darn thing. And Washington's defensive line is better than New York's, with Chase Young and Sweat and Payne and Allen and all those guys. He is going to be under duress a majority of the day. And I just think, to me, like, the difference is going to be, I don't know if Dwayne can make enough plays, I guess, like Colt McCoy. You could say, well, Dwayne Haskins, Colt McCoy, who's better? You could argue Colt McCoy right now, because Dwayne Haskins, in his stint against the Niners defensive line, he didn't look that great. And I just think it's going to be one of those things to where Russell will make one more play if it's Dwayne. If it's Alex, I think, Alex will have more of an opportunity and an edge against the Seattle pass rush. But again, Alex, against the Niners pass rush didn't look that great either. So it's going to come down to me, like, I'll take Russell Wilson as the better quarterback if it's Alex or Dwayne in this game against two teams that defenses have been playing much better as of late. And this is actually right now, due to the Washington football team winning, this would be the playoff game right now. And I think I think Seattle would rather play Washington than the Giants, because I feel like Washington's offense is not nearly as, or like, it's kind of the idea of like where like the Giants just got there. It's like they have confidence. If they can beat Washington, it's kind of like it's a transverse property. The Giants beat Seattle, they wouldn't like to play the Giants. If they beat Washington, they like to play Washington. So that's why I like. But I took Washington on the line because I could genuinely see Washington winning this game based off their defensive front, shutting down the entire Seattle offense because Russ can't throw the ball. So that's why I like Seattle here straight up, but Washington plus 4.5. The next game, the Chicago Bears over the Minnesota Vikings. This is one to where I think the reason why I went with the Bears is or it's twofold. One, the Vikings, I mentioned before, Dan Bailey had his worst game, he's had his worst 2-game stretch. And knowing the Bears defense, as I've seen them, they had to kick a lot of field goals last time. And Dan Bailey made those. I don't know if Dan Bailey makes them this time. He missed an extra point. He missed a 36-yarder and a 46-yarder. The 54-yarder, give or take, but that wasn't even close. And I think with Trubisky over the last couple weeks has shown again that he's probably the more consistent thrower in this offense, and a Vikings defense that it doesn't generate a lot of pass rush, and I think Trubisky's mobility will be key. And I just don't know, if it comes down to a kicking game. Maybe, this time around, Kirk Cousins and Dalvin Cook, they just run the ball really well, and they don't have to get the field goals. But I remember the score. I think it was a 19-10. It was a 19-10 game where the Vikings got one touchdown to add, or was it 1 or 2 touchdowns in the game, and then they had to kick a bunch of field goals. And I just think that right there, I feel like the Bears' offense has a little bit more of a spark. They put up 30 points against the Lions. They put up 36 against the Texans, and the Vikings defense is around that range of mediocrity for the Bears. And I think Trubisky has some confidence. And with the Vikings, I just, I don't know. I feel like, can they run the ball? Sure. But I'm just like, they had to really hammer Dalvin home, and he didn't even get 100 yards in that game. And I just think, the Bears defense, they have their, secondary aspects. But it's something where, like, Mitch is going to be the difference in this game to why the Bears win. And again, would I be surprised if the Vikings win? Not at all. Because I think, Kirk's had a pretty good, stretch of games here to where, he's not doing, he's not in a horrible spot. But I'll take the Bears because I think Trubisky makes a few more plays. And if it comes down to kicking, right now I can't trust Dan Bailey to hit the Pacific Ocean with football. So I think that's why I'm taking the Bears to win. Wouldn't be surprised at all if the Vikings won, but just from what I've seen over the last few weeks, the offense seems to have been able to generate enough. You got 30, 36. I don't think the Vikings will give up that many, but I could see the Bears defense holding the Vikings enough to where it's like a 27-21 or 27-24 game for the Bears in this one. That's why I have the Bears winning. So that's why I like Chicago here +3 and Chicago straight up. The next game, the Miami Dolphins over the New England Patriots. This is one to where Miami has played pretty well to, be competitive. You could argue, again, they had 2 picks in the first half. They were up 10-0. They basically had Patrick Mahomes, dead to rights. But then there was a point where the Chiefs went on to score 3 touchdowns. And, quick seconds, they were up 20-10. And then the Chiefs relaxed back. And the Dolphins started to get some, nice strides. Gesicki had a couple big grabs and touchdowns. And I just felt like with the Dolphins, it was like, okay, the Chiefs kind of lulled themselves into another win. And I think here's the thing also that I noticed, though, with the Pats this time. In week 1, they played Ryan Fitzpatrick. It was Ryan Fitzpatrick, and they had 3 turnovers. Cam ran for 75 yards, and he threw for another 90. And that was okay. And, it was Fitzpatrick. I think the difference for me with Fitzpatrick and Tua is going to be the lack of turnovers. They won that game by 10 points. It was 21-11. And I think that was also partially due to Fitzpatrick having the turnovers at times where they couldn't get points. Tua will not turn the ball over nearly as much, and I think that'll be the difference. And I think this Dolphins defense has played a much higher level now than they were back early on in the year, or what was week 1. This Dolphins defense is one of the best in the league, and I think, Julian Edelman, he might not, be back yet, and the offense really sputtered against the Rams defense. The Rams defense is better than the Dolphins one, but it's basically the same kind of front, the same kind of secondary, type of secondary that's smothering. And I just don't think the Pats win this one. And just the cherry on top, one of Tom Brady's losing records in terms of on the road as a Patriot was always Miami. I think he was like 9 and like 16 a couple years. Like, he lost more games in Miami than he won. And the Patriots just have always seemed to struggle going down to Miami. And with this team right now, I just think it's a nice bet. It's an easy one. I think it's fairly easy to pick the Dolphins here, just off those circumstances. Cam threw for 100 yards, had a pick 6, didn't look great. I think the Dolphins defense, he's going to play kind of that same kind of level. The offensive line, I think the Dolphins can generate a good enough pass rush. He may not get sacked as often, but he's going to get put into some bad decisions. some throwaways, some deflected balls, and all that, to the sort. And I like the Dolphins to be able to win this game, to put themselves in a huge game on next Saturday against the Raiders, probably for their playoff positioning, regardless of division or not. So that's like the Miami Dolphins are -2.5, and the Miami Dolphins straight up. The next game, the Baltimore Ravens over the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Baltimore Ravens have, dominated mediocre teams. They beat up on the Bengals bad. They beat up on the, Texans pretty decisively. They beat up the Washington football team by 14 points. And Jacksonville is the second worst team in the league. They don't really know their quarterback. They've had Mike Glennon, Jake Luton, and Gardner Minshew start multiple games, and all of them have been pulled and replaced by other guys throughout the year. So Doug Marrone doesn't have a quarterback. The Jags really can't pass the ball. They got dominated by the Titans on the ground with Derrick Henry, and our running game is better than the Titans. And it's one of those things to where I think the only positive thing you could say about the Jaguars right now is Johnny Robinson has the most scrimmage yards for an undrafted rookie, and he's the fastest guy to 1,000+ scrimmage yards in NFL history for an undrafted rookie. That's the only positive thing you can say about the Jaguars. Everything else, I like you like Joe Schobert and now Rosas, the former Giants kicker. He had an okay game, but you got destroyed by Derrick Henry on the ground. Tannehill threw for 2 TDs. And if you saw what they did against the Cowboys, we could do that and then some against the Jags defense. So 12.5, it's like that's a big number. And it's like you'd say, well, maybe the Jags defense makes some plays. Sure, but I'm like, they can't stop the run. And we got Lamar and JK and Mark. And we should just be able to do what we did against Dallas. And we won by 17 there. So if we won by 17 against the Cowboys, 12.5, 17 is more than 12.5. That's why the Ravens are going to win. Not very hard analysis there. So that's like Baltimore here -12.5 and Baltimore straight up. The next game, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the Atlanta Falcons. This is one to where I thought about Atlanta because, again, Atlanta has played better. But I'm just like, okay, Tampa Bay, they should be able to limit Todd Gurley. And even if the Bucs secondary, if they get Julio back this week, could they get torched by Matt Ryan? Sure. But Matt Ryan has shown you more often than not over the last few weeks that as good as Matt Ryan started out the year, you kind of have to look back and go, well, it kind of snowballed up and down, and now we're at a point to where Raheem Morris, the guy that I thought maybe genuinely after they beat the Raiders had a chance to keep that job. If he goes on a 4-game losing streak to end the year, I don't think they retain him. I think that he'll have more losses, or just about as many losses as wins. That's not good enough for an interim coach to me. And I think the Bucs, look, they had some balance. Ronald Jones ran for 80 yards, and I thought he looked decent. And I think they can definitely do that against the Falcons defense again, or they should be able to hold on. And also, I think for the Bucs and Arians, that most of the guys are there, they're going to be motivated to say, hey, the last couple times we played, the Falcons, it came down to like the last play, or the last play of the year for the Atlanta Falcons, overtime, 24-24, was Jameis Winston's 30th interception. And they celebrated, and that basically saved Dan Quinn's job. And now look at the Falcons now. They don't have Dan Quinn they don't have Dan Quinn now, and we have Tom Brady, who's not going to, throw, those kind of interceptions for us. And I think, they feel like we have the better running game. We have, more receivers. And just we have a better, confidence among ourselves that we are in position to win, where the Falcons, they're a quality team under Raheem, but it's just more often than not, they'll lose the close games than win them. And I think, I think the Bucs are also motivated. They did not play well against Minnesota at all. The only thing that positive to happen for them is they won. Everything else on the stat sheet, if you look at it, was Minnesota. And it was just their kicker, and it was the kicker that really jipped them out of the whole game. If Dan really makes those 10 points, I think the Vikings win that football game. And it's kind of one of those things to where, Atlanta, it's going to be kind of the same thing. Atlanta may be able to run the ball really well. Dalvin Cook did a good job. Todd Gurley is Todd Gurley. But it's Atlanta can throw the ball all over the yard to Hurst and Julio and all that. But it's going to come down to either Matt Ryan not being able to make a play or Matt Ryan throwing a pick. It's going to come down to that factor because I can't blame Young Ho Koo, who's had one of the better kicking years of the entire year. It's kind of gone underrated because the Falcons have been so bad. But that's kind of the momentum why I had the Bucs winning here. It's hey, look, they'll be able to run the ball, control the clock, and I just can't trust Matt Ryan in this spot. He got swept by Taysom Hill, who outplayed him, And just coming off that Charger loss, it's like, okay, the Bucs have some confidence just in the sense that, hey, look, they won. They know that they got the Lions, being able to back a quarterback, and then the Falcons again. So it's like, okay, we get to beat up this Falcons team twice just for our own amusement. And I think they'll feel confident to kind of just also take that revenge from last year getting swept by them and use that into winning this game. So that's like Tampa Bay here -4 and Tampa Bay straight up. The next game, the Tennessee Titans over the Detroit Lions. This one is kind of like Packers-Panthers. It's like where I am going to take the Titans fairly easily because, again, the Titans have just been on a good, consistent roll. They play Titan football. A.J. Brown had a big 37-yard touchdown reception. Even though I know A.J. Brown went down with a knee injury. If somebody could tell me, I think he came back in the game, but I thought he did okay. And Derrick Henry did Derrick Henry things. The Jags really couldn't move the ball. And I think for me, with the Lions, it's one of those things to where the Lions offense is just more fundamentally better than the Titans. Or, I'm sorry, than the Jags. Because Stafford played well until he left the game with a rib injury. And even if he can't play, because Darrell Bevell said after the game they didn't know how significant the rib injury was. I like Chase Daniel. Okay? I'm probably like one of the few people in the Chase Daniel fan club of saying, Chase Daniel is a solid backup. Like if he has to start against the Titans who can't generate a pass rush and, against quality teams, I think the Lions can, hang in there. They have one of the worst third down defenses, and I just felt like for parts of the game, there were also points like early on where like Tannehill threw a pick or, there was key fumbles. If you do that against the Lions offense, they should be able to at least get into the field goal range and score points. So I think 11.5 is way too much for a Lions team to just will just hang around. Think about it. They had 8 against a much better team, or a better team in Green Bay, and they covered that. Do I think the Titans could lose? No, especially if Stafford doesn't play. I think Chase Daniel, he can't beat out Tannehill in this game. But I just think 11.5 is way too much for a Lions team that over the last couple of weeks just seems to have been just feeling better and playing more confidently. Again, over the last 2 games, 34 and 24. They just seem to have a little more fun and some confidence with the way they've played. So I feel like 11.5 against a Titans team that is not routinely known. This is only third time in 13 games they've blown out a team. But you could argue Jags. Apparently they blow out 2 impressive teams and they finally blew out the Jags. But out of the 3 blowouts, this is the most unimpressive one because it's like, okay, you blew out the Jags. Everybody's been beating up on the Jags. The Steelers blew out the Jags. The Dolphins blew out the Jags. Everybody can whoop up on the Jags. So I think with the Lions, that's way too many points, and I think the Lions definitely hold on to that 11.5 point margin because I think the Titans, I think they overestimated the opponent. I think they were like, holy crap, the Titans blew out somebody, and it was that's a rarity, but it's like it was the Jags. So you know what, I put too much faith in the Jags, thinking that they could hold on just from what they had done the last couple weeks with Cleveland and Minnesota. So that's a mea culpa on me. So I think the Titans here win easily, even with Stafford or Daniel, whoever starts, just because it's the Titans. They'll be able to control the clock. They'll be able to, fundamentally do a good job. Kenny Galladay's not there, and the Titans offense should be able to move the ball, especially with Okudah being out on the defensive side. Kenny Galladay still being out with his hip injury on the offensive side. But 11.5 with those offensive weapons, and the Lions offense under Bevel, I think that's just way too much. That's why Tennessee here to win straight up, but the Detroit Lions plus 11.5. The next game, the Indianapolis Colts over the Houston Texans. This is one to where I think for me, the Houston Texans offense, I know they could get some pieces back with, let's see here. They could get Brandon Cooks back. They could get David Johnson back. They could get Brandon Cooks and David Johnson back. But the offense, without those guys and Duke Johnson and how good the Colts defense has been, I just think, again, it was 2 points last time and they won by 6. I think, again, I don't think Deshaun will play nearly as well because I just think mentally going into this game, he's shot. He is shot psychologically because to see Mitchell Trubisky outplay you and it's not even close, that's a sad day. You know what that reminds me of? And for some older people, though, they'll be impressed. I know this story. That's like the Dan Marino, Ken O'Brien game back in I think it was like his first or second, like in the late 1980s. I think both of them came out of the same draft class, Ken O'Brien and Dan Marino. And the Jets, people were always angry, like, oh my God, we could have had Dan Marino, and we took Ken O'Brien. And Ken O'Brien and Dan Marino played each other on a Sunday. both out of the same draft class, and Ken O'Brien outdueled Dan Marino. I think it was in the NFL top 10 quarterback duels of all time back a few years ago. But that's what it kind of reminded me with Trubisky and Watson. It was like this weird moment to where Deshaun Watson, who was like the Dan Marino in this case, the guy that's heralded, the guy that's, fundamentally just purely better than Trubisky in every single way, plays, Mitchell Trubisky, who's been panned, who's kind of like O'Brien, he's been good almost 49% of the time, but bad the 51% of the other time. And you just see Mitchell Trubisky making throws to Mooney and Robinson getting a touchdown and him moving the chains. David Montgomery, who's really run well over the last few weeks, just fundamentally outclass and I guess it wasn't a quarterback duel, but just that feeling of like, my God, our pick outdid the one pick that we all still won in Chicago, but for that one day yesterday, Mitchell Trubisky was the better quarterback, and it felt very much like Ken O'Brien and Dan Marino for Jet fans. Like, yeah, that's our moment for Mitch. Again, I think Mitch is not going to be there next year, but for that one day, Mitchell Trubisky gets to celebrate that he beat the guy that everybody still wants in Chicago, but is in Houston. So, do I think the Texans have a shot? Sure, it's a division rival, and we just saw this game a week ago where it came down to Deshaun Watson, who emotionally, was spent. But I feel like now, like if you've seen J.J. Watt, I feel like that Texans team's given up for the year. Like they have no hope of making the playoffs, and they're just gonna lull through their next couple games. Unfortunately, they get to play the Bengals, so they'll get one more win, but that's it. So in my opinion, so that's like the Indianapolis Colts here -7, and Indianapolis Colts straight up. The next game, the Los Angeles Rams over the New York Jets. This is easy to me. Like I took the Jets. I was really angry at Seattle. I thought the Jets could play better. They just played the Raiders, who were a much better team, even still. And then the Seahawks blew them out by 37. So, to me, it's like, okay, the Rams played the Patriots, and they won by 21. And the Patriots are 500 times better than the Jets. And I'm just like, okay, this is like Kansas City. And I'm like, okay, Kansas City was able to cover, and the Rams could actually pitch a shutout. I'm being dead serious. I think the Rams, the Rams will pitch a shutout against the New York Jets. I'll go that far. I think the Rams pitch a shutout against the New York Jets. I think that offense just is that anemic offensively. Sam Darnold, he's not going to be able to hold the ball. They're not going to be able to run the ball with Frank or Ty Johnson. And I think the Rams pitch a shutout. That's going to be my bold prediction for the week, or if you heard it here first. I'm going to predict before the game starts, the Rams pitch a shutout. And the Rams, offensively, Cam Akers had the best rookie day out of anybody in a single game all year for rookie running backs. I thought Jared Goff played a Jared Goff game. But this is one of those things to where, for the Jets, the Trevor Lawrence thing is just three games away. Your mark of being the fifth team in NFL history, joining the 1972 Bucks, the 1980 Colts, who were 0-8-1, or the 1980-something Colts that were 0-8-1, the 08 Lions who were 0-16, and the 2017 Browns who were 0-16. You will be the fifth team to join the 0-16 club. Your prize will be Trevor Lawrence, and maybe with the new entire staff, maybe the Jets could get a win in the 2021 season. They should, because I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be that good, but who knows with everything else, how bad that team is. And for the Rams, they just got a fairly easy break here. It's like for the Seahawks, they have to play Washington, and basically I feel like if the Seahawks lose to Washington, the Rams have that division, because at that point it's going to be a tied record, and it's like, okay, the Rams should beat the Cardinals, and the Seahawks should beat the Niners, but it's going to be like, okay, I think the Rams have the Rams have the tiebreaker, so essentially that goes to them. This game is not going to be fun. I am a fanatic, as my channel says, so I would watch this game, but it's going to be a slaughter from probably the opening, from the opening kick. This is going to be another college game to where the Rams are Alabama and the Jets are Arkansas. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, the Alabama played Arkansas. So just like Seattle was Alabama, the New York Jets are playing Alabama or Clemson every week against really good teams. You have no competition, and it's not even fun to watch. That's why I like the LA Rams here -17, the LA Rams straight up. The next game, the Arizona Cardinals over the Philadelphia Eagles. This was a tough one because I wasn't sold on Kingsbury, and I bought into Joe Judge. That failed miserably. Daniel Jones, 49 career fumbles and picks in 25 games. He will give you a turnover or two almost every game. And I just really regret that. That's probably my worst pick of the week. All the other ones I could kind of accept. They're just go, missed kick and all that. I digress. But I'm taking the Cardinals here because I just think the Cardinals, they will figure out Jalen. Or they have Kyler Murray and it's Jalen Hurts. It's basically like you are playing a very similar type of quarterback. So this is the perfect week for like Kyler or Brent Hundley or whatever to like literally like go, okay, Kyler, you've seen Jalen. You both went to Oklahoma. I know Kyler left, but still, you're both at Oklahoma. You can watch the Oklahoma tape. What did you do in the Oklahoma offense, or what did you do that Kyler did? That Jalen did that you could see, and how do you stop it? And I just think that's going to be the key here. If Arizona had a different quarterback, I know the Eagles' defense. Look, it's pretty solid, but it's like you played Taysom Hill, who's a decent athlete, but he's not Kyler Murray, who's a much better quarterback than Taysom Hill. And I think the Cardinals, with that being said, I just think they pull out this win because just like I'm going to trust that Cliff, Vance, and Kyler know how to beat Jalen because they basically kind of play the position in a similar way. If this was like Tom Brady or something like that, or let's say like Dwayne Haskins, I'll take Jalen Hurts to win that game. Seriously, like if it was Philadelphia, Washington with Dwayne Haskins, I'll take Philadelphia because I think Jalen's just a better quarterback than Dwayne at this point. But since they're both basically similar, I feel like the Cardinals have that edge to where they can just talk to Kyler and go, okay, how can you stop this guy? Or what do you do that you can relate to Jalen to kind of go, okay, how could you stop or manipulate him in this game? But I'm going to take the Eagles plus 5.5 because I like the Eagles' defensive line. The Eagles just somehow, and Miles Sanders, who ran for another 100 yards, first time in 56 games, the Saints gave up 100-yard rushers. They gave up 2 in the same game. I'll take the Eagles because, again, like it's this weird thing to where over the last 3 years when Carson Wentz is down, the Eagles somehow win more games without Carson Wentz. There's a weird thing about that. It's happened over and over and now 3 straight times. So you can't even call it a coincidence. What's the problem with the Eagles with Carson Wentz and the other guy that's not Carson Wentz, and the Eagles win games without him and they lose games with, what's the common factor there? But I'm going to take the Eagles because, again, this is like Doug Peterson again, playing with a backup. Somehow they work better. So that's why I like the Arizona Cardinals here straight up, and the Philadelphia Eagles plus 5.5. The next game, the Kansas City Chiefs over the New Orleans Saints. This is one to where they're not going to rush Drew Brees back, and if it's Taysom Hill against Patrick Mahomes, that's the end of the story. That is the end of the story right there. As crazy as that is, I think if it's Taysom Hill, Patrick Mahomes can do the same exact thing to the Saints, and they're not going to be able to do anything with it. Or it's not going to matter. Patrick Mahomes can throw 3 picks against the Saints, and they're still not going to win. I think Drew gives them a shot, but I don't think he's going to play. They're not going to rush him back, and honestly, if I was them, I would make the smart play here and just take the loss, because now, essentially you're stuck in a hole with the Packers to where you have to hope they lose to the Titans, which I guess could happen. They lost to the Colts. So, they know how to lose to AFC South teams that have dominant run games, or, they're physical teams that, can run the ball. But I think Kansas City here wins this, though, just based off Mahomes and Taysom. If it's Mahomes and Taysom, it's not even going to be close. I think the Chiefs, they'll just be able to outscore on... It's like the Chiefs are all out of bed and they get 27, 28 points. I think the Chiefs defense, if Taysom Hill starting, can do enough with their secondary and their pass rush to limit Taysom Hill to, under that. And I don't think Patrick Mahomes is going to nearly play as bad. This is arguably to a lot of people, I remember before the year started, a Super Bowl preview. And I just feel like, again, Kansas City, they've been dominant. And I took I think the only reason why I took the Chiefs on the line is that it was under 7. This was like and I didn't think the Chiefs were going to be favored by 7 anyway against the Saints. But this is one of those things to where, like, I look at the Chiefs and go, okay, you're a 4-point favorite. You're going into a Superdome that, other people have gone into and played decently. If Rodgers played decently there with the talent he's had there, you can do the same thing with the talent you have there, Patrick. Again, this is going to be a tight MVP race, going down. If the Saints can somehow win with Breeze, then we have all hope. If not, then, by there. So, I think this game, it's going to be fun to see if Taysom can be competitive. Because I think that is the hope for all AFC fans. Seriously. Like, we need the Saints. If it's Taysom, we just need him to be competitive. You don't need to win, because you won't. But be competitive, because then we could all say, okay, if Drew's there, then, yeah, no. If Drew Brees comes back and they lose by any fashion, the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl. because that was the best team. I don't think, you could argue, maybe the Rams again. And again, maybe the Rams are, hidden hope in the NFC. Because they have the defense and the pass rush, I think, can compete with the Chiefs. And they beat the Chiefs last time in that shootout 54-51 in 2018. So, but I'm going to take the Chiefs here by 4. Patrick Mahomes, Taysom Hill, or Breeze. Breeze may not play. Even if Breeze is in there, I just don't think, that explosiveness can't beat out the Saints' fundamental. Or the Saints are incremental, the Chiefs are explosive. I'll take explosive over incremental anytime in this kind of game, especially with two quality teams. That's like the Chiefs here -4 and the Chiefs straight up. The final two games, the Cleveland Browns over the New York Giants. I learned my lesson from last week. Do not pick the Giants against quality teams. They can beat the Cowboys, sure, fine, because that game was close anyway. But the Cleveland Browns are a really good team. The Cleveland Browns, I hope they should win tonight, and then they just keep rolling. They've been able to run the ball really well. Baker's going to outplay Daniel Jones. The Giants' defensive line is going to be in a much harder position against the Browns' offensive line, which Pro Football Focus rated the number 1 in the league in terms of run and pass blocking. And I just feel like for the Giants, this is going to be one of those moments to where they had their momentum and then it popped. And I feel like for Washington and New York, it's going to be like basically the Giants. Washington could lose that one game. They got the Panthers and the Eagles their final 2 weeks. They should win both those games. So I don't think the Giants, they got the Ravens and Browns. I think the Washington football team is able to hold on and win based off just that schedule. And I just think for as good as Joe Judge had to run, and you could give him credit for all the one-score games, and maybe he makes the Browns give a one-score game. I think the Joe Judge thing, it's a little bit of promise, but it ends like the 2019 Dolphins, to where he's not, it's not a bad team, and if they get a better quarterback and some more assets, they could Saquon. They could be a team that could be, a contender or a playoff contender at the very least next year, but it's just going to end miserably for the Giants to slide starting over Arizona. And the Browns, look, they beat the Titans by 6, and they're just the more dominant team. Even if the Browns lose, the Browns are just going to be better than the Giants, like in any way. Also, it's going to be a great game because of Baker and Daniel Jones passed with their comments about, well, I thought, with the NFL, like, you needed to win in college, which I actually like because I actually agree with Baker on that a lot. It's like, winning in college matters to me as a college quarterback. It's like, you can't just be this talented guy, and I know you can say, well, Patrick Mahomes didn't win. Sure, but yeah, maybe there's exceptions to rules. So that's why I like Cleveland here -3.5 and Cleveland straight up. And finally, in the Monday night game, the Pittsburgh Steelers over the Cincinnati Bengals. Pittsburgh, look, they're going to have their usual time of rest, but also playing the Bengals. Ben's dominated them before, and the Bengals, they got blown out by the Cowboys. That's all you need to know. The Pittsburgh, just going into the game, just fundamentally, as awkward as they may play, as many drops as they have, as limited as running the ball that they could do, Pittsburgh would just practically need to score, I think, 14 to 17 points, and they won the game. Because the Bengals right now, with Joe Burrow not out there, Brandon Allen and Ryan Finley, going for the quarterback job, the Steelers shut down, the Steelers limit the passing game of the Bengals, which is non-existent right now. They win the game just going away. And honestly, for everybody out there, I wish this wasn't the Monday Night Football game. I know you could flex Sunday night games, which is what they did with the Niners, Cowboys, and Browns. Why can't you do it with the Monday games? Why should America have to watch Pittsburgh just blow out a Bengal team that's not really going to motivate anybody to go, oh, hey, the Steelers are 12-2. Yeah, but you beat up the Bengals, and you just lost to Washington, against decent football teams that, are more talent. You lost to them. You just beat up the Bengals, who were the third worst team in the league, and arguably right now the worst, behind, the two other teams. Like, beating up that team is not going to get you anywhere in terms of credit. So, there's that. So that's like Pittsburgh -12.5 and Pittsburgh straight up. So those are my picks for this week. Like, comment, rate, subscribe. Please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page. You'll see people like Gio Knows, Robert Sports Show, Andrew Warren, Keith Bailey, Martin Wong, Bridgewater's Finest, all those guys and gals that make picks like I do every single week. Check them out. And good luck to all players, coaches, fantasy teams, and fellow prognosticators this week. And everybody out there, still, even though there was a vaccine out, everybody still please socially distance, wear a mask, and stay safe. And until next time, this is Matthew Fanatic signing off. So long.